Hello everyone, it's Becca from Becca Books and Bujo, and today we are talking about all of the books I read in September. September was unfortunately a really bad reading month for me. I was in a pretty big slump toward the beginning of the month and just wasn't enjoying the act of reading and what I was reading. So I only read 7 books this month. Here are my stats for the month. I think my pages were in the 2000s. My average rating was 3.9 something. Just not a great month overall for reading. Let's talk about the 7 things I read kind of quickly because a lot of these books were included in videos, believe it or not. So in order to get out of a slump, I tried a graphic novel, and I don't think this was quite the right graphic novel because it was deeper content matter than what I really needed in a graphic novel to get out of a rut. So the first book I completed in September was Mouse, both volumes 1 and 2 by Art Spiegelman. And if you don't know about this graphic novel memoir, it is about Art Spiegelman's dad when he was in Nazi Germany and in the concentration camps. Actually, he was in Poland, I think, for most of his time. It also depicts the Jewish people as rats and the Nazis as cats. So it was very interesting to see race or religion played out in that way with different animals. It was deep. It was tough, as any Holocaust story is. And I enjoyed it, but again, I didn't love it as much as I think I could if I wasn't in my reading rut. So I gave it 4 stars, I believe, because it was still enjoyable, and I do love hearing stories about World War II and the Holocaust, but it just didn't get me out of my rut quite yet. So next I tried to do my Read It or Not challenge for the month. I read 2 books on my Kindle. I will just kind of reference the video more so than talking to you about the books. But I read a romance called The Astronaut and the Star by Jen Comfort, and I read a thriller called Someone Else's Life by Lynn Liao Butler. I enjoyed both of them. They were both kind of like mid. The Astronaut and the Star, I think I ended up giving it 3 stars, and Someone Else's Life I gave 4 stars. That was a really fun thriller. If you like isolated thrillers with a storm setting and unreliable characters, that one would be one you should try, I think. As far as The Astronaut and the Star, it's pretty forgettable. A romance about an astronaut trying to teach a movie star how to act like an astronaut, and they fall in love, of course. So yeah, it was a semi-successful Read It or Not challenge, but not the greatest either. Then a book that I think really added to my reading slump was A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving, and I actually DNF'd this at like the 80 or 90 page mark. Couldn't get into it, wasn't enjoying it, and I don't care to continue with this story. I know it's a movie, so maybe I will consume the content of this story in a different way. I know that this is a beloved classic, but I don't know, wasn't enjoying it and don't want to read things that I don't enjoy. The next book I have a whole vlog dedicated to because it was the choice of the red team, the winners of Deck of TBR-a-thon, which is the readathon I hosted in August with Chloe. We both had to read The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and we both enjoyed it, I think about the same amount. She gave it 3.5, 4 stars, and I also gave it 4 stars. I think it's a fun YA mystery about a girl who receives this astronomical inheritance but doesn't know why and doesn't even know the man that she inherited from. So we are learning along with Avery and the brothers or the grandsons of the man she inherited from why she received this money. It was good. It was interesting. There were fun riddles and puzzles that we had to solve along with the characters, and I look forward to continuing on in the series, but I don't know if it'll be like an immediate grab just because it wasn't a 5-star book for me. But still fun, and I think YA is harder for me nowadays just because I'm so out of that age range. Middle grade is different because I feel like I can still appreciate middle grade, but YA just seems different in a way. I don't know. Explain to me why middle grade and YA are so different, and why as a almost 30-year-old adult I can't read young adult, but I can read middle grade. If you can figure that out, let me know in the comments. Then I listened to a very powerful nonfiction book called The Only Plane in the Sky. This is an oral history of September 11th written by Garrett M. Graff, and it was just, I mean, a phenomenal piece of art that Garrett was able to put together. It was hundreds of accounts of people who experienced 9/11 in so many different ways. We got accounts from children, we got accounts from firefighters, from people who were in the buildings, people who were in the planes. And it was just truly a masterpiece of these stories. I started listening to it on 9/11 as kind of a way to remember what happened on that day and honor the people who were a part of that tragedy. And I'm really glad I listened to it and was able to hear those stories. I feel like there were a lot of similar stories to the Netflix documentary that they just put out on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, but there were still like also so many others, and really like random tidbits that you wouldn't expect to hear, like from a principal of a nearby school or from a random 6-year-old, which happened to be the age I was during 9/11, and how they felt when they heard this news in school as a first grader. So it was really powerful and a great way to remember and honor that event in our history. Next up, I read another YA, interestingly enough. This is Elsewhere by Gabrielle Zevin. I am going to have a dedicated vlog with this book included, kind of a secret one, so stay tuned. But this is about a young girl who dies, and she wakes up on a boat on the way to Elsewhere. Elsewhere is kind of this afterlife, and she has to cope with the feelings of dying early and learning how to live a new life in the afterlife. It's very interesting and very weird. I was a little lost in the middle of it, but ultimately it was a really beautiful story about what life is and what you make of it. And lastly, I think the worst book of the month I read was Butcher and Blackbird by Brynn Weaver. I thought I was going to love this because of all the hype I heard. It is a romance between serial killers, and I thought that I could love this dark romance. However, it was just a little bit too gross for me. I couldn't deal with the serial killer portions where they are maiming bodies. Yeah, there's a whole list at the beginning of this book with triggers, and I should have maybe taken those triggers a little bit more to heart than just reading through. There was some yucky stuff that I just couldn't get over. Almost gagged multiple times when reading, and I I gave it 3 stars because I actually really did enjoy the characters and their romance, but I didn't like when they were killing people, which was probably about half of the book. So yeah, it just didn't work for me, unfortunately. It's weird that I liked just a very certain portion of this story and not the other, but I felt like they were kind of different. When we had the main characters, why can't I think of their names? Rowan and Sloane. When we had them without any of killing background happening, they were really sweet to each other and loved one another and wanted to take care of the other. But then, of course, because they were serial killers and loved to kill other serial killers, we had to have that as a part of the story. So, not for me. I will not be continuing on in this trilogy, the Ruinous Love trilogy. It's just not a romance for me. I think I might be in the minority with that, but that's just how it is for me, I guess. So here are some of the books. A small stack of the books I read this month. I also had the audiobook of the Oral History of 9/11, and I had my 2 Kindle books up here. So, I don't know. It was an interesting month. A lot of trial and error to get me out of a reading slump, and I eventually got there, but it took some time. And you know, I'm okay with the month. I continued to read. I persevered, even though I just felt like sitting on my phone and doing nothing. I continued to read, and I'm really proud of myself for doing that. So let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. Did you agree with me? Did you disagree? It would be great to have some bookish conversation down below in the comments with you. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in another one very soon. Bye!